But one of the things I want to talk about, because not a lot of people know this, when detectives interview people, and of course, before they interview someone that is under arrest, they must read Miranda warnings. You have the right to remain silent, blah, 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 blah. You hear it on every episode of Law and Order ad nauseum. I haven't said that in a long time. But they're always, they have to. And then when they waive their Miranda warnings, then the interview can proceed. Now, one of the things, a detective knows what happened. And he does not let the defendant know that he knows what happened or exactly what the evidence is telling him. So what detectives do is they allow the defendant to lie. Keep lying and lie. Beautiful. Okay, let's take that down. And this takes hours and hours and hours of interview and interrogation. And then after they get that down on paper and they told their lie, now the detective will come back at him and say, look, all you just told me is absolute bullshit. And I'm referring to the shooter in this case, Christopher Preciado, right? I'm referring to him because he told the detective that Matthew pulled a gun on him and he wrestled it away from him and shot him in self-defense. And then somehow he also shot Savannah. So when we know the physical evidence in this case, that story is absolute garbage. That's a French word for garbage. Phil, talk upon that, please.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up what you brought up, because right out of the box, they knock on the door. The father opens the door and he says to them, I know why you're here. Now, at that point, I'm letting him tell me everything. What do you mean? Why are we here? He's going to give information. So he starts incriminating himself. He starts incriminating his son. At some point, perhaps he gets his rights read to him. As long as he's giving information without me asking him specific questions, I don't have to read him his rights. However, once I think he's in the trick bag as a perpetrator, boom, that's when I'm going to read him his rights. With regard to the son, Christopher, they probably listened to his story and maybe he came out with a bunch of lies, like you said. And I'm going to take it all in, write it down, let him keep talking, go over it a few times, make sure that he repeats the same things over and over. Now that I know that he's made some lies, then I'm going to hit him with, I know you're lying, you're facing 2 25 to life sentences, possibly the death penalty, or perhaps 3 life sentences based on the pregnant female. And again, we know by the physical evidence, like you said, Billy, I'm so glad you pointed that out. He's going to put himself in a trick bag for saying, oh, it was an accident. I was there. I fired the shot. But it's not. Well, it's something that we call a self-serving statement. He makes a statement that puts him in it as wrestling the gun, and it accidentally went off and killed 2 people, and one of them being a pregnant female. But that's good enough to put him in the trick bag that he makes that statement. He's now got to face that down in court. That's exactly how I would have done it.
Well, Phil, you're forgetting one thing, right? You're forgetting one thing. You let him tell his lies. You let him, and one of the things is you say, well, when you shot him, how far away was the gun from his head?
Right. The contact wound.
You know he's not going to say he stuck it right up, because that goes against his entire story.
Well, what I would do is I would let him tell the story, and you're right about that. I would say, well, without saying, how far away was the gun from his head? Well, you had the gun in your hand. Where was he? Was he 2 feet away, 10 feet away, 5? And let him put himself in the trick bag for exactly how far away he was. Now, it sounds like if it's a wrestling match, it's going to be fairly close. But if it's a contact wound where the gun was very close to the head, he's going to articulate it was, 2-3 feet away. And I think that the physical evidence will now be brought in at trial and be able to impeach what he just told the 2 detectives or whoever it was in the room that he was speaking to.
Well, Phil, even though I'm no crime scene guy, anything under 18 inches away is going to produce stippling.
Yes.
Which is little pieces of gunpowder that'll be seen on the skin. That is scientific. That will tell the investigator, tell the ballistics expert, tell the scientist he was within 18 inches. And even closer, it leaves a different pattern.
I was just going to say that.
On the skin. And if it's held up against, it does something called tattooing. It actually leaves a tattoo of the barrel of the gun on the skin, because, folks, when someone fires a gun, out of the end of the barrel, if you haven't fired a gun, you haven't seen anyone, is fire, actual flame comes out of the barrel of the gun. So what do you think is going to happen when it's held against someone's skin? It's going to burn a tattoo into their skin and then add gunpowder into that. And you have what's called tattooing and a close contact wound with gunshot residue. Professor Mike, I know you're sitting
Wait,
there.
let me just add something, Billy, please. I
Go
know I
ahead.
just want to
Go
add one
ahead.
thing
Go
before Mike. I don't want to cut you off, Mike, but Bill, you made that point about the close contact wound. It usually leaves a circular pattern, the barrel, course of the flame, and sometimes if it's close, gases will go underneath the person. If it's a head wound, it'll go under the skin and leave, which you said too, some tattooing and residue of gunpowder and different things of that nature. But this is where the crime scene, the medical examiner comes in and can tell you, no way that gun was fired from 3 feet away. That was a close contact wound, very close within inches or right up to the person's head. Or
So then with his statement, Phil, and what I'm really trying to get at for the people that are listening, his statement really, he supplied the rope that will hang him.
exactly.
And Mike, I'm going to let you go because you're the attorney, you're the criminal justice professor, and I know you're sitting there impatiently ready to go.
Yeah, Billy, the police did this right. Going to the location because they got the Chevy Silverado license plate. They know who it belonged to. They know some Charlie Chan Drive because they know that also because Soto, she did a search for Charlie Chan Drive on her cell phone, which that was fabulous. They go there and they're pretty much divided in by the father. He's not dragged forcibly into the back of an RMP and driven to the precinct. He's not handcuffed to a chair.